the people's voice. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the people's voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the people's voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. It is greatly appreciated. We continue to do well each week. The listenership is growing, and so I am excited about that. There is a need in the marketplace for information that is unfiltered, and we are happy that we can be a source of that. So thank you again to everyone who is listening. For those of you who do check out the podcast, do me a favor, tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody. Subscribe to the podcast. You can also comment if you want. You can reach me on any of my socials. I'm at I am Trey Evans on Instagram and Twitter. That's IAMTREYEVANS. And then and that's also on Facebook as well, Trey Evans. And then you could also reach us at the show Instagram, which is Trey Be Talking. That's TREYBETALKING, Trey Be Talking. And, leave a comment, anything that you want to say regarding the podcast. All comments are welcomed. In addition, last piece of business, we do now have merchandise. So I am currently wearing one of the items. It's the People's Voice t-shirt. This is a very high quality t-shirt. So this is not, your typical, t-shirt where it's, you put it in the wash and 3 days later it's destroyed. High microfabric material, very stretchy, very cool. It doesn't, it doesn't make you sweat or anything like that. It feels good. It stretches well. And it's very exclusive because it is strictly for the people's voice. And so you can check that out at my site, Trey Evans. You can just Google Trey Evans, or if you want, you can just click one of the links on my social media platform to get to the shop. And we have more stuff on the way. The shirts, hats are coming. I got the wristbands which say tell them about the dream, or I should say live on purpose. And then the other part says tell them about the dream, which for those of you who have been following me for a few years now, that's part of my tagline. So, but yes, please, if it's something on the site that you like, support it. I'd greatly appreciate it. So today, our topic today is about home ownership. And I wanted to talk about this. Let me tell you something. I could not wait to open this mic to get on to talk about this today, because there is so much conversation going on, and debate, I should say, about home ownership. And, a lot of the conversations is about the pros and the cons. And this is one of these topics, as those of you who have been listening to the podcast for the last 30 weeks, I can't believe we've been doing this for 30 weeks, but you know that I am big on research and sourcing information. This is one of those topics where I really could just sit here for the next 25 minutes and tell you my own personal journey and don't even have to get into the research regarding this. But I did want to talk about this today because, particularly in the Black community, we are still lagging behind in terms of home ownership. And really, the conversation transcends race, religion, gender, as far as I'm concerned. But I do have a responsibility when I open this microphone to make sure that this message is getting to the community for which I am from, and that I hold a great deal of love and want to see our community raised up and to continue to win as we are continuing to do, because we are making strides in all of these areas that I'm discussing. But today I want to talk about home ownership and particularly the pros of home ownership, because again, like I said, there's a lot of conversation out here. I see these Instagram posts and these Facebook posts with people saying, home ownership is not what you think it is, and giving all of these ridiculous stats on why renting is better than home ownership. And you guys know I try to be unbiased when I give this information out, but some of this is like, what are you talking about? Like, literally, what are you talking about when you tell a person they should rent as compared to owning a home? Now, let me set some parameters. Because, I know people are already, jumping at it saying, wait a second, it's not for everybody. No, home ownership is not for everybody, right? Everybody has different set of circumstances to whether they need to rent compared to owning a home. I completely understand that. My argument, or the position that I'm taking on this today, is that if you have the option between renting and owning a home, if you have the option, why would someone want to rent when the benefits of owning a home far outweigh renting? And, again, I know we are in a state where financial literacy is at an all-time high and access to information is at an all-time high. And the first thing people go to is, well, if you own a home, that's how you create wealth and you have better net worth. And I'm not even getting into all of that. I mean, I'm going to touch on it, but that's not even in the topic that I wanted to the aspect of home ownership that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about just the benefits of home ownership from the perspective of family life, in terms of health, in terms of education. I mean, there are far bigger aspects to owning a home than just the creation of wealth. And, to just basically or briefly hit that topic, it is also a way to create wealth. It blows my mind when I see these posts saying, well, if you own a home, technically, if it's a mortgage, then, you're really homeless. Man, if you don't, okay, hold on. Let me calm down. What I'm saying is, is that owning a home from a financial standpoint has its benefits, right? So let's talk a little bit about those numbers first. And then, that aspect first, because, that is the basis from which most people want to talk about home ownership versus renting. And then I'll get into some of what I consider the more important aspects, or the more deeper benefits that come from home ownership, right? So let's go here into the numbers, because even though, like I said at the start, I could talk about this without going into any research, I still like to do my research, because, I want to make sure that that my point is being supported, right? I just don't want to be opinionated on these podcasts. So this is from Forbes Advisor. I'm just going to talk about the numbers right now. I'm just talking about strictly the numbers, right? A survey was done in 2020. Basically, they did a survey about home ownership. And it says here, and this is an article on Forbes Advisor, it says home owners have a net worth that is 40 times greater than renters, right? So this is just a number I'm putting out there. Again, I am not driving that you need to get a home because you want to have greater wealth and, a stronger net worth and all that. This is the argument out there, one of the main arguments. So I wanted to start with that before I get into the what I truly believe are the benefits of home ownership versus renting. But here it says, again, homeowners had a net worth 40 times greater than people that rented. It says basically that homeowners had a net worth of, on average, this is again on average, of $255,000. This is back in 2019, compared to renters who just had a net worth of $6,300. Now, again, this is not everybody. This is on average, because I know somebody's going to hear this and say, well, I know, blah, blah, blah. Yes, there are those cases on average. And again, these are, and just to reinforce, these are United States figures. Also, let me just say, I am not a financial advisor. This information is for consumption. This is not advising anyone on what to do. This is information for debate and for discussion. But again, so that's one of the aspects. Homeowners generally have a higher net worth than those who rent. Okay. That's the first aspect. So now we get into what is the actual cost in terms of, I guess, what are the other costs that people consider, or I've heard in discussion in regards to why you should own a home or why you shouldn't rent. The next thing that people always will say is that, well, you got to come up with a lot of money to own a home, right? The down payment. This is true. Again, home ownership is not for everyone. I'm just basically going with the argument that when people say you should rent over home ownership, I'm like, what are you talking about? Again, every circumstance is different, but overall, the benefits of owning a home far outweigh renting. But here, they say the closing costs. Yes, if you want to own a home, it's going to cost you money. It's not cheap. You have a down payment, right? And I'm talking about the initial cost, and those closing costs that can add up. And they can range somewhere in the aspect of 2 to 6% of the purchase price. It does get expensive. But again, you're making a long-term investment. So if you're in the position to do that, then that cost, you understand, eventually you will make that back and then some as the house continues to grow. As a renter, there is no net worth or equity that is built in the apartment, right? You are mainly throwing money into living in a place where the person that owns the building eventually cashes in on the money that you're giving. So that's the other aspect. Again, right now I'm just talking about the financial part of it. And then the other aspect is in terms of fixed cost, right? Because once you do get into a home, you take out a mortgage. Typically, most people take out for their first mortgage, a 30-year mortgage. You pretty much know what your payment is going to be every month, right? So then it allows you to do other things in terms of budget. Now, again, I know people are going to say, well, you got property taxes when it comes to a home and repair costs. Yeah, you got all of that stuff. But the basis of your payment, is going to pretty much stay consistent. So that, in terms of owning a home. And then as a renter, your rent will increase pretty much on an annual basis, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the recent increases in rent that have been astronomical. So, from a financial standpoint, those are some of the benefits. And then there's also the tax advantages that you get from owning a home. You can deduct property tax and mortgage interest and things of that nature. You can't do that when you're a renter. So, you know, you can make certain deductions for repairs. And there are other deductions that you can do from a tax perspective that obviously you can't do as a renter. So those are the financial benefits of home ownership versus renting. Okay. Now, what I wanted to talk about specifically is, well, before I do that, so let me just again go through kind of the pros and cons. Well, I already talked about that. Yeah. So in terms of home ownership, it's usually a good investment. You have stable housing costs. You know what your payment's going to be. Tax incentives. Obviously, you build equity over time. Some of the disadvantages of owning a home, you have to maintain repair costs. Obviously, there's a long-term commitment that you're signing up for. It's usually more expensive than renting because of the upfront cost, and then some of the maintenance costs. And then, there's always the possibility that, you may lose your job and then the house gets foreclosed on. So those are risks that come with living, right? And it doesn't depend on, doesn't matter what you do. There's always risk in anything that you do. Some of the advantages they say in renting is that you have lower housing costs, right? And when they say housing costs, they're basically talking about the amount of, because you're just paying rent, right? And some apartments include utilities as well in the rent. So when you own a house, obviously you got your mortgage payment, but then you got your potential repair costs, utilities, things of that nature. So there are other additional costs, but again, over the long period of time, the benefits far outweigh, in my opinion, than renting. But in terms of renting, lower housing costs, shorter commitments, and no minimum repair costs, which I just said. But the other side of it is that you don't have a fixed monthly payment. So that payment that you started off with in your first lease could easily, increase 20, 30%, which I'll talk about a little bit. Obviously, you're building no equity. You have no ownership in that. So basically, that money is just going into the hands of someone else. So those are the financial benefits. Now, getting into the what I consider the greater benefits of home ownership. First of all, with home ownership, you have a great deal of what comes with that is stability, right? Because, and especially if you have a family, this is very key. When you have a family, stability is key when it comes to children, right? And not just the stability of living in the home, but it then affects their education, because there are studies upon studies upon studies that show that home ownership, or children that are living in homes, again, this is on average. So I already know people are going to say, well, no, that's not true because I know so-and-so and this. Researchers have found that on average, right, kids that are growing up in homes, they have a greater level of stability, which then affects their performance in terms of school, right? Because remember, in the United States, the average child is in grade school, and grade school is from kindergarten to 12th grade. about 13 years, right? So for a 13-year period, in if you're living in a home, you have stability, right? The child knows that there is a consistent place that they will come back to that'll allow them um, to nurture their educational skills. It keeps them in the community. It keeps them at the same school. Children need repetitiveness, particularly when it comes to education and at young ages. So if the average child is in school 13 years, and if you're living in an apartment, and now I'm just talking straight from experience, you're living in an apartment and you're moving every 3 years. Let's say your lease is up every 3 years, or you sign a 24-month lease. Most people sign a 12-month lease, right? If you need to move because either the rent has gotten too high, or the neighborhood has changed, things of that nature, that affects that child every time that you move. Children need stability. So this is one of the benefits of home ownership. Home ownership promotes stability because you, as a homeowner, are in it for a long investment. This is not something that you're doing just for the moment or just for a time. Now, again, it's not for everyone. I understand there are some people that have careers that they can't be anchored down. There are some people that, due to maybe their job relocates, or they're in the military, or whatever, or educational opportunities, whatever other external factors that are lending to the argument of you having to rent. I completely understand that, right? It's not for everyone. Again, a home ownership is a long-term investment, but one of the benefits, particularly when you have children, is that you have stability, which then promotes consistency in terms of academic performance, which, as we know here in the United States, is very heavily monitored and also an essential part of the wealth building process, right? So that's the first aspect in terms of benefits of home ownership. The second benefit is that it promotes health, right? It is, again, many studies. I'm reading here, there's a study from the University of Michigan, a study from the University of Michigan. It says here, the study suggests that home ownership may have health protective effects, right? It promotes greater health. First of all, mental health. Again, children, just like adults, just like children, need to have some level of stability. If you have a place where you are a stable residence, where you can come to kind of wind down from the day, that allows you to center yourself, it allows you to think about some of the next steps that you're going to take in your life. We all need that type of stability. We all need that type of centering. And obviously home ownership provides that. Now, again, I know they're going to say, well, I can get that in my apartment. But yeah, if you're moving every 2 years, or you're getting new neighbors every 3 years, or the rent is increasing, the mental stability, your mental health is affected by those things, especially if you're not anchored somewhere. And I keep going back to it. I know I keep saying the same thing. I know there are circumstances where you cannot own and that you have to rent. I completely understand. Again, my argument or my discussion today is about the benefits of home ownership compared to renting, because I'm seeing so much information out here about, or so many different advertisements and all of these experts out here who are selling courses on why you should rent compared to home ownership. It's just like mind-boggling to me. So those are the two that I wanted to talk about: the mental health standpoint, from stability from owning a home, also the effect that it has in terms of stability for children, because children are affected by stability, and the more stability that you can provide to a child, the greater the chance that that child will do well in their academic pursuits increases. So those were the two things that I wanted to talk about. I'm reading here about long-term outcomes of children from that live in homes, and I'm reading a study here. I don't know where the study is from. Oh, this was done by the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia and Freddie Mac. And it says here, children of homeowners tend to have higher math and reading scores, achieve higher levels of education, and experience greater upward mobility compared to their peers. Home ownership encourages property upkeep, which we talked about, and then home ownership purchases, or I should say, promotes community within families and children. So those are some of the benefits of owning a home that go beyond just the financial aspect of it, because again, I know that is often thrown in the face of individuals saying, well, you should own a home because you can create financial wealth. Yes, you can create financial wealth and increase your net worth, but at the same time, there are additional benefits that go along with that. Like I said, your mental health, your physical health, obviously stability for children, so on and so forth. And then compared to renting again, housing costs can be very unpredictable. I'm reading here a study that was just done. And this is on, what am I reading here? That shows the average. This is from rent.com. Literally, I pulled this up while I was talking. Rent.com. It says here, on average, over the last year, and this is from last year, 2021 to today, the average, and I'm going to read it directly from rent.com, year-over-year increases continue at a steady pace, blowing past the 30% barrier for both bedroom types. So literally, in the last year, rent has increased by over 30% in the United States. And they break it down by state. And matter of fact, I might just throw this graphic up in here so you guys can see this as well. But literally, they break it down by state. So over the last year, a one-bedroom apartment has increased by 39% in the United States, a one-bedroom apartment. A two-bedroom apartment has increased by 38%. So on average, and again, this is across the country, on average, a one-bedroom apartment is $1,700. A two-bedroom apartment is $2,100. That's per month, okay? Year over year. There are mortgages. I think, obviously, mortgages vary, but you can get a whole house, okay, plus some for $2,100 a month in terms of a mortgage payment. So that is a huge amount of money. And again, this is really affecting, this is really one of the other reasons why I'm often confused about the mortgage versus renting conversation. Like, in my estimation, there's like, if you have the ability, and again, I'm going to keep reinforcing, it is expensive to own a home. Yes, you have initial costs, you have potential repair costs, utilities, I get it. But in the long run, you are building value, right? You are building value. Renting does not build any type of financial value. And again, as the previous benefits that I stated, don't come along with renting, because you don't have that level of stability, especially if you're moving every 24 months or every 36 months, because you're either looking for cheaper rent or situations change with neighborhoods, things of that nature. And then last but not least, and this is something that I love to discuss. If home ownership wasn't important, right? Why is it that companies to this day still attempt to perform discrimination, or I shouldn't say attempt, do discriminate against particularly African Americans to deter them from either obtaining homes or, refinancing the homes that they have? If it's not that important, or from moving into certain neighborhoods, if it's not that important, why do you think the discrimination still takes place? Because the people that are responsible, the gatekeepers, so to speak, the gatekeepers to home ownership, they know how important it is, which is why the discrimination takes place. Matter of fact, let me play this clip from NBC. This is a homeowner that was trying to refinance his home, and he was being discriminated against because of the color of his skin. Take a listen to this.
To disclose it, he told the first lender he was black.
So the gentleman came back and advised, turns out we're not interested in townhomes right now.
Why not?
He just said it's an industry standard right now.
He also disclosed his race to the second lender, who said they could do the refinance, no industry issue with townhomes, but at a rate higher than what he already had.
So I started to realize maybe I need to not disclose my race. They said it's an option that I have.
A majority of black home buyers are concerned about qualifying for a mortgage, while less than half of white buyers are, according to a Zillow survey, because lenders deny mortgages for black applications at a rate 80% higher than that of white applicants, according to the most recent data from the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act.
So now, if they're denying black applicants at an 80% higher rate, why in the world would you, as a person who is promoting renting versus home ownership, believe that renting is more important? I'm just like, on this one, again, I try to be unbiased. I try just to research and just give you the information. But on this one, I can't go with it. Like, the benefits of home ownership far outweigh the benefits of renting. And I encourage everyone who has the ability to own a home, take the necessary steps to become a homeowner today, not only for yourself, but the benefits for your family and for the building of community is very important. So that is the podcast for today. Home ownership. Go do it. That's the message that I have for today. So I hope this was informative. I hope that this encourages you to go seek information. If you're not a homeowner, if you are a homeowner, tell somebody else to become a homeowner. And I'm not going to come off of that stance at all. But as always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the people's voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute. I am Trey Evans. People's voice.